What's up, folks? I'm Odd, by the way. So we are rolling into October, the spooky month, as we know, and I have been wanting to do something with monsters. I've been sitting here scrolling through my usual resources trying to find something. I started one video, didn't like it, decided to start another one. So I've been a little indecisive today, and random generators are here to save me, I hope. I mean, I was looking for random generators, just trying to figure out what exactly I wanted to do. Nothing particularly stuck with me, although I did find this generator on Perchance that seems to be like randomly generating these like tables for these random creatures, and I thought that this might be a fun thing to play around with, so I decided to try and jump into this. As you can see, it has a bunch of different options, so it will give you the size of the creature, its diet, what its body looks like, how it travels, the idea being that it has certain abilities, it has certain traits or something like that. It seems interesting, and there are also like emojis and colors that you can base the creatures off of, so I thought this would be a fun thing to try and play around with and see if I could make anything out of it. It's specific, but also very random. So I figured that we would do 3 of these, as I usually do, and try and make some, like, funky creatures based off of them. Taking or leaving maybe some of the aspects of them, but I will try to use all of them if I can. Alright, let's see what I can get with this. A boop. So our first creature, extra large, feeds on blood, fish-like, swims, has 6 legs though. Emojis, a sunflower, a chain, and a skull and crossbones. Interesting. It has shiny nails, can't smell, but its sense of smell is stronger than other creatures? That doesn't make any sense. Hold on. Which of these do I reroll? I reroll this one. Can't smell, can't smell. Let's reroll. It can produce glasses. Sure. And then the colors are kind of a murky, swampy vibe, which feel like they could suit this character. So I will grab this table. This is interesting and obviously needs its tuning a little bit, but I mean, like, it's hard to make things that don't make 2 things at once, I'm sure. It is funny when it, like, actively contradicts itself, though. If it is to a degree that I feel like I could go around it, I might try to change it up. Alright, so our next creature, super small. Did we already get that, or is this extra large? So we are on both sides of the spectrum here. Herbivore, only eats plant matter. Amphibious-like, flies, has tentacles. Okay. Its emojis are a flower, Libra? No, Virgo. I don't know. That symbol. It can make algae through its tongue. It can produce oils. It's blind. And we have another kind of desaturated, gross color palette that is interesting. Okay. Grab you. Our third creature, a boop. Small, so kind of in between. Carnivore, eats flesh. Squid-like, but walks. Has more than 10 legs. Emojis. Stadium? Let's see, actually. I wonder if I can... Stadium, yeah. Stadium. Mountain. Mountain. Camera. Okay. It is cottony. It is flat. Can smell things most other creatures can't. And it's got this kind of sea-like. Interesting. Okay. Alright, let me bring you guys down over to clip so you can see this. Boop. So, yes, extra large, super small, and small creatures. Blood eater, herbivore, carnivore. Swimming, flying, walking. So we've got all modes of transportation, essentially. Fish-like, amphibious, squid-like. 6 legs, tentacles, 10 legs, or more. Interesting. So, I can't immediately think of, like, what this would spark with me. So, when it comes to the first one, it being feeds on blood, fish-like, swims. Skull and Crossbones could be like, it's a mutant of some sort, like it's a human created creature, right? Chain Link, maybe it was an experiment. Flower, I have no clue. Maybe it's friendly. Taking these a little less, like, literally for their inspiration. Maybe it's plant-like as well. Herbivore, amphibious, flying, with tentacles. Flower, that... I probably could have looked it up. It's one of the astrological signs, and a bear. So it could be bear-like, even though it's an amphibian and has tentacles. Interesting. And we don't need to use all these, I don't think. It's not totally necessary. And we have a carnivore, squid-like, walks. More than 10 legs or more, so it could be 10, could be more. I might stick with 10, because I don't know how much I can depict. Emojis being the stadium, the mountain, and a camera. So it could be some sort of cryptid, like a small town local cryptid is what I'm getting from that. Cottony, flat, and can smell things most other creatures can't. So, interesting. Something kind of like fluffy, almost? Cottony? That is a fascinating a fascinating descriptor. I am curious to see if I can play with these and what I can maybe make out of them. So I will deliberate on this a little bit more and then pop you guys over, just be paying voiceover, so you can see what I came up with when we get there. So I'll see you there. First up, we have our fish-shaped sanguivore, or blood-eating creature. My immediate thought was a leech, and like, as much as they can elicit a sort of squicked out feeling, looking at them further, they're just silly little guys. Something about them is so goofy to me. Their bodies aren't what I'd consider fish-shaped, though, a bit more flat and slug-like, so I went for something that kind of resembled them in my mind. I realize now I could have probably just gone for a lamprey, which do also consume blood sometimes, but I went for a catfish instead. Their flat mouths kind of look like they could act similar to leeches in my mind. For the legs, I went for something a bit more terrestrial than a mainly swimming animal might have, but this roller does specify between, say, like, tentacles and legs, so I felt like just making the fins went against the concept, and it really just made it look like this was just a weird fish over anything exciting. The main thing that also makes this creature more ethereal is the extrusions from its body. With the ideas category offering that the creature could create glass, I thought of one of the more naturally occurring glasses, obsidian. That sort of shaped this creature into something with a bit more of a volcanic origin, which honestly could explain one of the 3 emojis offered in the roller too, that's Skull and Crossbones. This creature probably exists in toxic waters after a volcanic eruption. I took a couple of passes at this design and landed on something a bit more lava-like to match that volcanic idea, with the obsidian sort of branching out of it like fins or spines. I called this creature Living Obsidian. The Living Obsidian might be more of a legend than a creature, a giant fish that resides in a place most life cannot. Upon first inspection, it seems like an early explanation for carbon monoxide stored in lakes, but the stories don't always end with bodies near the water. Instead, the major curiosity comes from people and animals who survive these events, some of whom report that they were in the water and dragged under, drained of blood, but miraculously woke up fine, refreshed and healthier even. Some believe the creature is after the toxins in the blood, feeding off of the carbon monoxide and oxygenating what remains. The only proof of this are the almost surgical cuts that remain, reportedly from the living obsidian's sharp lava glass scales. Next up, we have our tiny herbivorous flying critter. The body shape was described as amphibian, and though the first thought is usually a frog, I had another immediate idea being a salamander. The major thing was figuring out how to combine that with the tentacle legs and flying. I had thought of something like how octopi can have webbing between their tentacles. Then, when I moved my thoughts to something more like an axolotl, I remembered another thing kind of similar, especially because the creature is also blind, which was a descriptor in the prompt. The olm. Olms are sort of like skinny axolotls with no eyes who have adapted to live in watery caves with little to no light. They also kind of resemble eastern dragons with their super long skinny bodies and tiny limbs. This gave me the idea of making the tentacles not placed by the head like I had been doing to resemble the axolotl's gills, but more on the middle of the body to resemble a dragon's wings. This also worked really well with the sort of membrane tentacle idea I had come up with. This little guy still looks like they're either swimming or flying through magic, but that kind of adds to the creatureness of them. I decided to call this critter the cave dragon. The cave dragon is an incredibly small and elusive creature. They feed on algae that grows along the cave walls, but not necessarily for nutrients, instead as a means of allowing their own body to photosynthesize from the small amounts of light that enter the caves. It evolved away the use for eyes as the rest of its body just naturally moves to the light that it needs. Similar to a jellyfish, it floats almost idly through the air and follows the drafts of the cave along with the light sources available throughout the day. It is harmless, though travelers might accidentally get its tentacles caught up on them. The sucker is allowed to hang on cave walls at night while it rests. When hanging, the outside of its body naturally collects even more algae. It's not quite known how it flies, but it is so lightweight it almost seems to exist in its own gravity. And finally, we have our squid-shaped carnivore. This prompt was probably the hardest of the three to get something I liked out of, especially because the ideas area mentioned legs specifically over tentacles, like squids normally have. That, and I didn't just want to make a land squid and call it done. I wanted something at least a little bit more creative. I initially tried something like a spider with a squid face, but it wasn't immediately vibing with me. I think it just felt like too much of a mashup. Of course, the other creatures kind of are, but those are all, at least hopefully, a bit more seamless. This just felt like throwing a squid onto a spider. I did finally come to something a little bit more interesting when I tried to go a more classic mammalian predator, and I was reminded of the displacer beast from D&D, which also has tentacles jutting out behind its head. Which meant that I also had a name for this creature, or at least what I decided it was imitating, which is the curl. No, not curl, like hair. Coeurl, like the French word for heart, cur, with an L at the end, so I assume curl is how it's pronounced. It is, at least from my research, the major inspiration and public domain version of the Displacer Beast. Maybe minus the whole dimension hopping thing. The curl comes from a 1939 sci-fi short story called Black Destroyer that, from its synopsis, seems also very similar to Alien. But D&D took a little bit more inspiration from the cat-like appearance of this main antagonist in the story. The name is also used in Final Fantasy for a similar design if it already sounds familiar to you. This creature is not a curl, but it is pretending to look like one, which means it probably exists in the same world, so isn't that horrifying? I took the prompt of it having 10 or more legs to mean it was kind of indiscernible, so I thought it would be funny to have a squid-like creature sort of contorting its body to resemble a more intimidating terrestrial animal walking around on its tentacle-formed legs. So this is the imitation curl. The imitation curl is about the size of a small house cat. Being as small of a predator as it is, it often uses its enhanced intelligence to resemble the babies of an especially protective and dangerous parent, the curl. Though they don't fool the hyper-intelligent apex predators themselves, they are able to slip by other smaller predators under the threat of an angry curl mother nearby. The imitation curl is also quite intelligent and can morph its body into many shapes, similar to the squid which it also resembles. It thrives on ambush attacks especially. It hasn't been known to attack humans, but its sharp-clawed tentacles are not to be underestimated. And those are all of my beasties for this week. I did have fun with this. I don't know if I'll come back to this particular roller, but I always have fun with creature design, even if it can get a little funky. Let me know what other art challenges you might like to see me do in the future, especially if there are fun resources like this involved. I do love to play with them. At that though, I'll leave this here, and I will see y'all next time.